Welcome to the Construction Brothers Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Campbell, and with me, like he is every week, my brother, Eddie Campbell.
What's up, Tyler?
Not much, Eddie. And this week, we've got Nick Berndt with us.
Gentlemen, how are we?
We're doing good. It's great, man.
Having a good old day, man. We're breaking this in this week. I realized something before we got in here that I have to be concerned about now that I never did before. It's my breath. We are in close proximity here, and I have been wolfing down coffee all morning.
Me too. I totally do. Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about that.
I got to start stealing a toothbrush here. If it's bad, you're going to have to live with it.
We could have gone across the street and got some Mediterranean food before this and got some really good onions.
Oh, good note. Yes. Yeah. Go hit some hummus. Yeah.
Exactly.
Be just dog breath.
All right. So Nick, dude, you commented on a LinkedIn post is why you're here.
Right.
On one of our LinkedIn posts.
You antagonized us. And we love it.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So Eddie went on record saying, hey, here's what I want. I want more money for design. As an architect? Is that what you were saying?
Well,
if I'm an architect?
Designers as a whole, so more money, more time, right?
Those are the key things that you would like.
For more detail.
Nick, you entered the equation and you said, yeah, that's great. And that's where...
And that's why I'm here.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So, I said that's not always the answer, right?
Yeah.
So... I think if you went across the world, everybody would always want more money and more time to do a better job.
Yeah.
I think that's really the simple solution is everybody saying, well, give me more time, give me more money. Yeah. That'll allow me to do a better job. Mm-hmm. Right. But I think it's also about collaboration. Yeah. And from an owner's perspective, how much effort is put into that collaboration for the project to be successful for not only the guys working on it, contractors, subs, the trades, but also the owner, because at the end of the day, the owner is the one that benefits most from a successful project.
Yeah. So let's step back a little bit. You're an owner, right? That's what you do day to day.
That's my role.
Cool.
Owner for automotive group.
Okay.
Owner's rep.
Sweet. Awesome. So you see this every single day.
Day in and day out is looking at architectural plans, MEP, civil, the whole 9 yards, and being responsible and involved in that project from conception all the way to the operation of that facility.
Yeah.
You're feeling it for real. Like you're out there and you're actually trying to procure and get a good design built. So
absolutely.
We're speaking more from the theoretician side of things. You're a practitioner.
The detail side of things. We're
practitioners, but I don't do what Nick does. Point taken.
Yeah,
and you kind of came in and said, I've to a certain extent tried this. Like I do want to spend maybe not, we can't say infinite money on design. You get infinite money and infinite time. Do you think we can get it good enough over that? Yeah. I mean, I think we can probably get something pretty freaking good, but
you would think
but I have said, I'm willing to spend more money and time to get a better product.
And have done it.
Yeah. Okay. But it doesn't always guarantee.
Yeah. No. And have done it, have provided more time to that design professional, paid more for, and I'm going to use the term loosely, the correct design professional. And I say that because one of the comments on LinkedIn was, it's not always, how do you know you hired the right guy for the right job? Yeah. Which is a challenge. But if let's say that firm specializes in, and everybody's project is unique, there's no doubt. And I'm looking at this very narrow-mindedly for my world. But if you're hiring the design professional that specializes in that type of construction, that type of, facility, and has a track record of doing it, I think it goes without saying that person should be more qualified than somebody who, let's say, designs big box distribution centers. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, they're not going to be used to the coordination, the owner provided elements. They will in their world, but not in my particular world.
Yeah. So don't read the comments as the moral of the story. I guess if we hadn't read the comments, Nick wouldn't be here. That's fair. No, I mean, and I can appreciate that comment to a certain extent because I think I may have even made the comment to you that, man, I'm probably going to get reamed for this one, but in the automotive industry, like we've got some industries that are earmarked for not being so great to work with, right? That we know that the state of design, the state of the drawings that we get for some industries is better than others.
Yeah.
We'll get more detail. We'll get more of a complete from a structural aspect. And automotive, I will say that automotive has gone to the point where we have seen an architect try to argue that their steel is integral to the architectural design and that they have every right to just design a structure. Like, is that bad? That there are not even structural drawings incorporated into the auto dealership design. Now, is that to say that you're not more savvy than that? I absolutely know you are. But automotive as an industry, like, we haven't seen a real high profile product out of that industry as a whole from structure. So, but that's a very like interior design heavy and exterior design heavy industry. So I think there's some other factors in there that may weigh heavier on the process than just does the structural steel work. Right.
Yeah, there's tons of detail in these projects, you know, to your point, on the outside and the inside. And even so, when you go all the way back into a service shop, I mean, there's a lot of different elements that require tons of coordination. And I think part of the challenges and maybe why automotive has a bad rap for quality of drawings is there are time constraints. You know, we do have to get a store built and open because we're not earning money with it sitting there.
You got to sell cars, man. Like, you got to start pushing profits.
There's overhead that's associated. There's investment in real estate that's associated. So, you know, like everybody, we want to get it done and open. And, you know, we do push on the schedule of the design. We do push on the schedule of the construction. And the only way to help the construction side is to have time and do good drawings on the front end.
Sure.
Because that's where we see, you know, delays is when you have issues in drawings, and structure being a huge component of that. It's critical path. It's going to hold up everything.
Yeah. 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 That's why we're always under pressure to get our thing done quick. Now, you walked us through a little bit how you try to help. And I think that this may be, you seem to be going over and above because you are very attentive here. And you showed us kind of your schematic design that you're handing to your architects, and it was highly complete. So walk us through that a little bit.
Well, it's the thought process.
I mean, again, if an owner wants a successful project, they've got to contribute, right? I mean, I can't hold a design team accountable for doing quality drawings if I'm not helping them step off on the right foot and giving them the information they need when they need it to be successful.
Yeah.
I have to contribute as an owner.
That's fair.
So yeah, internally we put together a floor plan and a site plan. And like we were talking earlier, it doesn't take structure into consideration. I mean, it does a little bit. I'm not a structural engineer. I'm thinking about it when I'm laying out this plan. But for me, the big thing is how that store is going to operate, where certain offices are related to other offices, space planning, as well as making sure we hit the key points that the manufacturer is going to require for their program.
Right.
So we try and put a bunch of effort into that on the front end to allow our architects and engineers to be successful and to reduce the back and forth that is needed. As you know, their first stage would be a typical space plan. So we try and take that out of the equation and say, here is our space plan. Here is what we want to build. And here's a ton of information that goes along with it for how we want all these details to come together.
So you hand them that. And let's go back to the instance where you try to pay a little bit more to get design, like to get a more complete design. What then? What kind of happens? Where does it start to fall on its face if you chuck more money at it? Does it go well?
You know, sometimes, of course, not always. We're putting in the effort too to review progress drawings. Right. You know, we're constantly going back and looking at the manufacturer requirements and making sure that information is getting into our drawings, because we don't want to take the figure it out as we go approach. That's the most timely and the most, you know, costly. Yeah. So we don't want to do that. So we're putting in the time and energy on the front end. And a lot of times we're pushing the design team to say, hey guys, you know, our 60% was due today. where are we at with it? And oftentimes it's, we're going to need some more time. Okay. How much more time do you need? Well, I need this much time. I'm like, I still have deadlines to hit. And at the end of the day, if my design schedule pushes, I still have an opening date for a store. So what does that mean? Where does that additional time come from? Comes out of production.
Yeah.
So to try and manage this overall big picture schedule, I've got to push on the design team because I know my contractor, something's going to come up and he's going to need more time.
Yeah.
Right. So if everybody keeps taking more time, the whole schedule pushes.
Yeah. Everybody wants to own the float.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to control as well. So it's okay. You guys need more time. How much more time? Give me 2 weeks. Okay. And it's like, listen, I'm giving you the time because I want it right.
Yeah.
If I didn't want it right, I'd say, give me what you have now. We have to go.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, okay, take the 2 weeks, take the time. It's got to be right. And in some instances, even then, it's not. And our owner comments, whether they be fit and finish materials, whether there be some specific constructability details that we want incorporated, whether it be equipment, even though we're redlining those drawings and putting in that effort, it sometimes doesn't get into the plans. And that's across the board. It's not just, not just focusing on architects, right? It's the whole design team. So some of that frustration is, man, I feel like we're really putting in the effort. We're really trying as an owner to get this right so that you guys in the field, right, can go hammer this thing out. That's the objective. You want to get in, you want to get out, because that means more profit for you. And we're all for that. And it only benefits us to get in and get out as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So I got to go.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead. I had some too, but fine. I yield my time.
You had the last one, man. Give me a sec. I have kind of the repeat project thing has happened in our lives, right? We have done the repeat of like entertainment venue builds that go again and again, and they're same but different city to city. Like there are things there are things that you find out. You're trying to find those things out as quickly as possible. Like, frost depth is a little bit deeper in Chicago than it is in Florida. Like things you have an instinct for, but maybe things you don't know exactly what's going to happen in a municipality that you're going to change for.
Right.
Somebody's got to be the keeper of the info. Somebody's got to convey like the things that you can convey. Now, the schematic that, just kind of this basic, usage plan or whatever. You guys are going a little further than that. I mean, like what you were just showing us is a very complete floor plan. I mean, that somebody could go from. So you are being the keeper of a lot of that design information. You've put together standards that you showed us. Like you're being the keeper and conveyor of the information from site to site. But I want to kind of like piggyback and say, I feel the frustration because I remember like, we'd make a decision about, the devilish VE, but it's like VE stinks when you're in one site and you've got to change something mid-flow and, we're trying to save some money. But like when I can get away with a 6-inch stud and not an 8-inch. And then you're 3 sites down the road and you're still trying to get the design team to acknowledge and change that in their design because the design builder has proven site after site, 6-inch works, and it saves a lot of money.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to convey that, but it isn't always easy to get them to actually integrate that.
Right.
That review markup just never makes it in. I remember instances where, we're chasing structural and saying, guys, this isn't the way we're going to frame this condition. And we're trying to back that into drawing site after site instead of getting it at the outset where it was like, we handed this to you, you knew this. It's like we've done it 3 sites before. Why are we changing drawings at 90% instead of having this as a part of our drawings at 30?
Is that because we're using like canned details or something like that? Like
I think this is a matter of diligence in some ways. Yeah, what excuse could there be? Like you guys, you were showing the red lines to us a minute ago.
Right.
Extensive, right?
Yeah.
We try and dive in. Yeah. We try and dive in.
You're in it.
You went above and beyond, my friend.
You're paying attention. Like what excuse is there for not getting that integrated?
Well, back to your original LinkedIn comment, I'm sure the excuse would be time.
Time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're all challenged with time. It's not that it's not a legitimate excuse, but we are all challenged with time. And the only way we can be successful is to become more efficient in what we do.
Yeah.
That's reality. We're all always being asked to do more with less, and the less is the time, So, I would imagine that would be the reality. And a project architect, and again, forgive me, I'm just throwing out project architect instead of project civil or whatever it might be. So, but they're not only working on my project. I don't know what their project load is. They're working on more than one, and something else is probably pulling them away to focus on what I selfishly want them to focus on, which of course is my project.
Yeah.
Do you explore that? Do you ask? Suppliers.
So that's where I was going to go.
Okay, awesome.
That's where I was going to mention before you cut in and took the spotlight. As
Forgive me. So sorry.
So, yeah, it's a matter of production, right? So you give them an extra 2 weeks. Is that to make your project 2 weeks better? Most of the time, no. It's because they're trying to catch up on the other crap. And so they're only spending an extra 2 days on your project as well, right? It's
They're
a give and a take.
priorities.
Competing priorities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
my ask is, do you ever explore with the designers, what kind of time do you have on your team right now?
Yeah. And I'll say during COVID, that really didn't matter. It was more about who I can find to get this done. Because so many people were, and I appreciate the honesty, were saying, I can't get to this. I can't do this. And you don't hear that a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
Everybody wants to be the guy. So when somebody's saying, I can't get to this, number one, thank you for the honesty.
Yeah.
It's greatly appreciated. Number two, who can I find to get this done? Because I still have to get it done.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Who do you know?
Yeah.
Prior to that, sure, it was a lot of conversations of what's your workload like? Who is going to be my project architect this time? We're all for building relationships too. And I want to work with the same design teams as much as I possibly can to work out some of those, I don't know, we'll call them typical misses, right? If we can work with the same team and build that relationship, it would seem on both sides, it's going to increase efficiency. And kind of getting back to what you were saying about, VE or, 6-inch versus 8-inch studs. I've had that. I have a project where we built it and we're going to build the exact same thing again. And ironically on that project, I walked into the shop, they were setting bar joists and things like that. I walk into the shop and I see some of the largest steel beams I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Now I've been doing this, for going on 12 years at this stage of the game. And the first thing I thought of is, what did I screw up? Because that should not be there.
Yeah.
And I called the project architect on the phone and we had a unique situation. There was a display deck off the back of the building. So I call him up and I said, please tell me there's some kind of crazy structural lateral load, something going on that is justifying the need for these massive steel beams.
Yeah.
Because I've got to be able to explain this. That's money right there.
Yeah.
And the answer was no, it wasn't associated with that. It was something to do with the orientation of the shop, which ironically was the same orientation of shop we do on every single job for the most part, where I've never had these steel beams. So as we go to build the next one, I say, listen, let's get on a conference call. Let's get your structural engineer. I want to figure out how to make these go away because it took a ton of coordination in the field to work around them. What can we do realistically? And if there's no realistic option, then okay, I guess I'll understand, but I want to dive into this. Well, thankfully, the simple solution was we just had to double up a couple bar joists here or there and problem solved.
Yeah.
And I think a few doubled up bar joists are a lot more cost effective and will help project flow versus massive steel beams that are 75 feet long.
Yeah.
I found as we were working through lines of projects that there's great money in questions.
Yeah.
There's amazing money in questions.
It's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, listen, you don't have to be an expert at it.
Yeah.
Nobody can be an expert at everything. Yeah. But my gosh, it's amazing what you can find out if you ask a question, no matter what it is.
Play dumb. Ask why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, please don't pretend you know. And I tell people all the time, and even in my office, I'm like, listen, if you're so confident in that decision that you would write a check yourself, fantastic. I'm all for it. Right. If not, it doesn't cost anything to ask a question and make sure that it's right. It's simple.
I think sometimes people don't want to upset the apple cart by asking that question most of the time, right? They don't want to.
Or look dumb.
And I think look dumb is probably a big one, but I look at it as, isn't it a learning opportunity?
Yes.
It's a learning opportunity for you to better yourself and then know on the next one and the next one and the next one. Because chances are somebody else is going to be involved and they're going to challenge that direction. But if you ask the question and you understand why you're doing it a certain way, man, you've got the knowledge now.
Yes.
You can say, hey guys, wait a minute, that doesn't look like right. We've done this before. We've done it like this. Why are we doing it? Asking a question. Why are we doing it different?
So as you gather these lessons learned, you guys have done a good job of getting your standards set up. And participating as an owner and conveying, because I would put these things into two buckets. You've got those things that you said and conveyed at the beginning, and somebody they took a holiday. Mm-hmm. They didn't listen.
Yeah.
Then there's the thing that everybody will hate an owner for, and that's the owner changes after the fact.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Which I would bet you're willing to say, yeah, I changed that and own the change.
Right.
But the conveying on that front end and actually getting the follow through there, we talked a little about processes and systems for conveying that. So can we, I know Tyler's going to be disappointed in the level of nerdery.
Go ahead. Go into the weeds, my good sir.
Well, okay. So you're conveying standards via PDFs, obviously through written word and through AutoCAD files that you have set up. So can you walk through that a little bit? Like that wasn't there maybe at the very beginning, but this seems like something that you're pretty on.
I take pride in them. I'll be honest. Yeah. When I was involved, when I walked through the door, it was very much a figure it out as we go approach, and for me with the construction background, again, the more specific and accurate you can be, the more cost effective and time effective you can be. Yeah. Right. And walking into having never done automotive before, having had very little commercial experience, my background prior to was running my own tiny little design, build, construction firm building residential houses. Yeah. Okay. And of course, in that history, design, build, designer, builder, drawing the plans myself. I wasn't sure who to point a finger at other than this guy, right? And when you have to write the check for those errors, you learn really quick, real quick. Let's not make that mistake again. So anyway, long and short was, after spending a little time there learning the same things that we do over and over again, why are we reinventing the wheel every single time? Why are we basically taking an equipment plan with a different electrical engineer, MEP engineer saying, here you guys go, figure it out, put it on the plan. I really don't know what's supposed to be there. Yeah. So we got together with the equipment vendors, and we looked at ways that we could do the same thing over and over again and allow the infrastructure that we have to put in the building to not change. Mm-hmm. So that way, if for whatever reason we want a different workbench layout, there's a different type of equipment, our infrastructure is consistent. And quite frankly, that helps the design professionals.
Yeah, I was wondering, have you seen improvements since you've engaged that?
Huge.
Okay, so the planning did help.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The problem is, I feel like it then created other problems that we necessarily didn't have before.
Like what? I want to hear that.
Yeah, what other problems?
I will say that when I started a firm that we work with quite a bit, and I enjoy working with them, there's some very talented people, there's no doubt. First it was, you guys are constantly changing your minds. You don't know what you want. And I had to say, fair, I can't understand today. I cannot argue. Right. So let's do better. Right. Then it was, okay, we started creating these standards and I said, okay, we're still having these problems. What's going on? Well, your standards are changing. And I'm like, I don't like the word change, but I will say we're fine tuning them. We're getting them better, but in your world, it's probably a change. Oh, okay, we're going to get better, and then we work to really solidify these and say, okay, this is it. Now, do they get updates? Sure, because of course, in this world, something gets discontinued and we have to have a new spec. Right. But for the most part, infrastructure, the real meat and potatoes of it, is constant. And now I go back and I'm saying, I'm looking at change orders, and of course we're tracking them, looking at the types that they are. And it just seems to be trending, and I'm hoping it's a temporary trend, but it seems to be trending more to the constructability side of things, you know, the misses. And some of it is the fact that our standards that we're redlining, that we're providing, just aren't getting in the drawings.
Yeah.
And that's what I take the biggest issue with. You know, I can understand if I didn't provide you the information, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, if I'm doing the bulk of the heavy lifting on the front end to communicate to you, to try and make sure you are successful with what you're doing, then why can't that information get on the sheet?
Yeah, and it's kind of a no excuses, let's do the simple things, guys moment.
I'm a huge fan of the basics. If we can focus on the basics, there's going to be some complexity in the design, some hidden unknown that's going to creep up. And quite frankly, it's understandable, right? Especially on reno jobs. We don't have x-ray vision. We might have plans, but sometimes we don't even have existing plans, and we're having to make assumptions. And I get that. But when it comes to building new, and quite frankly, sometimes simple structure, why at this stage of the game are we having misses that result in delays and $20,000 steel change orders, $50,000 steel change orders for something that it wasn't an owner change?
Yeah.
It was, you know, a bust in the design.
I will say downstream, as changes happen to prototype designs, because we've had experience with this on 100 plus gas stations that we've worked on too, right? That it can become frustrating trying to figure out. It always feels like this needle in the haystack, even when you know everything. You know what the building's going to look like. You go and compare designs, and you're like, I think we got this one. I think we got this one. But then there's that one little thing that changes,
Just
and you whiff, and it's a constructability issue in the field. Oh, there's $5,000, you know, crud. What's interesting is we've seen, like on the standards thing, prototype numbers employed, because at some point you do have to lock in time, the thing that governed for that site.
Yeah.
So if I've got a live file that can be updated throughout the process of construction, then I might look at that live file today and have one thing, and that live file tomorrow could have another. But prototype numbers they exist so that we can lock in a standard and say, this is the standard that governs, and it will stay the same throughout this project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's back to what you were saying earlier. It's diligence to check all of the angles and everything too. So like, even if your system is amazing for checking and making sure that one little needle didn't slip in there, like you still have to stay diligent and do your job, right? And I feel like in a lot of ways, that's kind of what we're running into. Like, you give them a great system. Like, if you hand them this amazing plan and say, here you go. If they're not diligent, if they don't do their job really well, or just stick their head into it and really stay in it, it's going to slip through. So like in some capacities, it's the human element. I feel like that's just causing a lot of the dysfunction in the design community right now.
There's an automation problem that I'm seeing. And that's
pull that thread. Yeah. Well, that's a good one.
It's interesting. Back in the day when we did a plan, we sweat over that plan. So like, if AutoCAD or hand drafting, I'm working on this, and I think about every line. Right. I think about every line I put on that page. Every line had purpose. Every line was like, is it a dashed line? Or is it a solid line? Is it, do I embellish this? Do I not? Like, everything had purpose, because the pace of that is pretty slow, and I'm working through every detail. Now, automation picks things up. Automation is like, that's taken care of, that's taken care of, that's taken care of. So you start making assumptions. You start you're moving fast. You didn't live there for as long. You didn't marinate for as long. Yeah. Because the machine's doing a lot more for me. Yeah. And it's made us more efficient. It's made things go faster. I'm not mad at it, but it does, like you said, now I've got a new problem. And that new problem is like, I've got to follow through on checking the machine.
Right.
And that can be tedium. It can be very hard.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make all the decisions I possibly can for a project that are just like, I'm checking all the boxes, and get my knowable vat of things I've got to make decisions on from here, and say, like, we're going to focus down on the check for these things.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Because in a lot of ways, it feels like you're checking the calculator. Right? It's like you don't want to check the calculator.
You don't check the calculator, you check the input and the output.
Yeah.
Right? Like I know this morning when I was adding 20 line items and I came in $3 off of the number, that the calculator added what I input, right? I just know I missed an input.
Yeah. I mean, it's the automation, but it's also the person that is inputting that information into that automation.
Yeah.
You know, and that person needs to know how buildings go together.
Yeah.
Because it's not just you're hiring somebody who can run a computer. You got to have a person sitting behind that computer that really knows how to build something.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, has to have a lot of knowledge. I mean, it's a big deal. And they can't be experts in everything by any means, but then that goes back to asking the question.
Well, some of them are novice mistakes though, because you mentioned the whole glass wall outlet thing.
Yeah,
right?
My favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's does that person that's inputting that information know symbols on drawings that, you know, I've got a glass wall. I don't know. I haven't figured out how to put outlets in glass yet.
Yeah.
Maybe they knew something I didn't. Maybe it's an opportunity for me to learn, but I don't think so. And it's one of those simple things that, you know, if the person behind the machine isn't understanding those ramifications, which can be something like that is significant because I still need a power supply there. Well, I'm on the second floor. I've got a poured concrete floor. That means I now have to core that floor. I've got to pay for expensive floor boxes for, you know, 5 or 6 outlets. You know, those numbers add up over time versus for that person is just literally showing the correct symbol. And it's that symbol being $200 versus $2,000.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
We see that in symbols, in notes, and in standard details all of the time.
Yeah.
Things that they weren't really meant to be repeated everywhere. They weren't meant to cost you a bunch of money, but they are costing you a lot of money because something got in there and is being repeated, or something got in there and is being taken for granted because
the difference between A325N or A490. That's a big freaking difference.
Well, or I mean,
like just, and if you know it, you know it.
Things.
And if you don't, well, all right, look it up. It's a bolt.
or a myriad of other things that could come in and snag you. So
as working in kind of more the design realm, that was the biggest issue we had when we were bringing people on is like, it is training them to understand how to build the thing. It wasn't necessarily training them on the software. They could learn to operate the software pretty quickly. The long curve is teaching them how buildings go together. That was the biggest headache. And because it's endless. It's so endless. And like we're looking at one little facet of steel. Like you're accounting for all of these different elements in a building. It's an endless process and things just slip through the cracks because we are human.
Right. Well, and to your point, training, and it's something I have to do better with my team. And thankfully I've got a great team, but even with an example being, I've got a group of great interior designers, you know, and one thing they're tasked with is coordinating all the furniture, where the power supplies are for that furniture and making sure it ends up correctly in the construction docks and in the field. And in that process, we provide dimensions for floor box elevations, you know, and this is an interior designer. And, you know, I started asking, okay, bring me the plan showing the locations. Well, they start dimensioning from walls. I understand that, but at this point I don't have walls, guys, we've got a dimension from grid lines because that's what the guys in the field have to work from.
Yeah.
They don't have walls to measure off of. And then from that point, it was training on just how to dimension something properly to try again and make it easier for the guy in the field that's actually doing the work. When you have dimensions and they're scattered all over a sheet, the information's there, but it's just not efficient.
Yeah.
So it's training on that. And then the most recent was, did a great job on it, but when the information was sent to the contractor and the superintendent in the field, left off the markings for the grid lines. So the grid line was there, but was it A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, didn't know because on the PDF that was made, chop that information off.
Yeah.
So again, it is training to understand what the people in the field need and don't need sometimes to be efficient at what they do. And sometimes it's just, thinking about how is that person in the field going to use that information and how can I convey that information so they can be successful?
Yeah.
We can take something so simple and really overcomplicate the heck out of it.
Yeah.
So can we dumb, and not to be negative, dumb it down, but at the same time, the guy that's laying out these things in the field, he doesn't need a bunch of information. He just needs to know where you want the box.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, he'll thank you for simplifying that.
Right.
But you've got a process. We talk about a feedback loop a lot, but you've got a process where you find out what's going on, and then you are trying to know and retain and improve. So you have seen improvement since you've started to standardize and do all of this stuff. So it seems to me like your trajectory is up on the outcomes of your designs because of that.
Yeah, that part is up and successful.
Yeah. That's what you control.
Unfortunately, other part that came down, and I've got the data on my end to show that it was successful. Yeah. But now we've hit a turn in the graph, and we're heading back up with quantity and dollar values associated with change orders, and not taking owner-driven changes out of it. That's not what I'm talking about. It's really the drawings and putting the effort into for those constructability details that seems to be trending up.
Yeah,
and I think part of it was the working from home during COVID. I mean, we've got to collaborate, we've got to do things, and now the projects I have under construction were all designed during that period. So I'm watching this graph, start to shoot up in a not good way of dollars and quantities of change orders.
I want to key on this because I want to educate both myself and the audience by asking this next question. That is, I would perceive that a change order, CO, would come at the hands of an owner change, something that you're like, I changed this thing, I expect more money, or potentially some sort of like field sub related GC level thing. What can create an opportunity in your life between, say, design and the general contractor where you get a CO that comes out of nowhere? Like what I'm asking, I'm trying to lead you into this question, but in the process of finishing a design, if they're not picking up things, if the design gets released and the general contractor, you go to contract, like talk through that sequence of events where you're trying to lock drawings in and you're also trying to go under contract and there's some sort of like little gray area in there. And then that's where that CO comes in, right? That you're responsible for.
There's definitely gray area. And it seems like that gray area time period is getting bigger as well, because one of the other problems we're having is permitting.
Yeah.
And comments during permitting. And our process is basically the minute we have a permit, I want to shovel in the ground, which means I'm contracting with my GC before I actually have that permit. Now, hopefully I've got a good handle on the timing of that permit and what to expect. But there's some times where the rug gets pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah.
And that permitting process takes a lot longer than it should. And I've got a contractor who's maybe mobilized. Maybe we got a early grading permit and he's done that work, but I can't move forward with any site utilities, building infrastructure. He's there on site spending money, so the permitting impacts that. And any comments associated with the building, maybe we get the permit, but there were more fire comments or, things of that nature where we're having to add fire shutters. Now, that's one of those things I understand that wasn't a mistake by anybody, but it's a cost to an owner, and we would hope that we would have that figured out when we go for permitting. But as you guys know, with code, a lot of it comes down to interpretation. Mm-hmm. So I have my selfish interpretation. The architect has his. And the guys that get to say you have a permit or you don't have a permit have their interpretation.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've got to get to where we all hopefully agree.
Well, it's funny. So you're trying to lock in shovel and ground right after permit. There's a little bit of a, there's some instinct. There's some guessing in that. It's like it's intelligent guessing, but it's like based on my experience, I'm trying to get far enough.
Yeah.
We complain a lot about how we never have 100% CDs to work from.
Ever.
We're always forced to go. But that aligns with the goals that you would have of having a shovel in the ground, like right when you get permit. Because, you're handing over permit drawings.
Well, and again, depending on that jurisdiction and their process, right? Nobody submits a set of drawings and gets a permit in 30 days.
Yeah.
Not for, a larger ground up facility, maybe an interior build out, but, large ground up facility, you've got site plan approval to go through. You might have zoning to deal with. It's not just a codes review. So that takes some time, and that doesn't happen in 30 days.
Yeah.
And my request from my design team is that when we submit for permit, they're 100% drawings, not a quote unquote permit set. Let's get it in. Let's start the process.
Yeah.
Because when I get that permit set that we submit for, that's the same set that goes out to bid.
Yeah.
And then if we have something that comes out, we're trying to manage addendums during bid time too. And again, it's pausing and understanding the person that's going to receive this information. How does it affect their world? Mm-hmm. Don't issue an addendum 3 or 4 or 5 days before a bid is due on a $15 million project. You throw the whole thing out of whack.
Yep.
If you got an addendum, number one, let's just try and do one. Let's condense it. Let's make it easy for people. Let's make sure stuff is clouded. Let's make sure it's revised. Let's communicate clearly so that in hopes we get something nice and clean in return.
Yep.
But if you're sitting there on a big project and you're throwing addendum after addendum during bid time because you get permit comments, because you haven't picked up prior comments, whatever it is, I can only imagine the contractor sitting on the other end getting to the point of saying, I'm out.
Yeah.
You guys don't have your stuff together. I can't waste. I've got 5 other projects I can go build that are nice and neat and clean. I don't need to give myself the brain pain on this.
Yeah.
So again, it's packaging things together, being organized, and communicating clearly so everybody has a chance of being successful.
Yeah.
On the change order front, I'm sorry, these are burning questions I've had, right?
What do you want to ask an owner about? Change orders.
Change orders. All right. So on the change order front, I get okay, so if it takes you a little bit longer to get into the building, you're losing money. Operationally, yeah. I'm not able to sell vehicles in your space, right?
You're losing money, but also is it costing me money because it's not a contractor thing? And that contractor may be saying, Mr. Owner, I need general conditions because this is taking longer.
Yeah. So how do you decide whether or not it's cheaper to just absorb the change order than it is for it to take more time? Where does that balance come in? Does that make sense? If I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm going to get change orders on this because it's cheaper for me to take on the change orders than it is for me to not move forward with this.
You mean you're pushing something forward before it's fully baked?
Before it's fully baked.
Knowing
I know there's going to be
risk.
a CO. I know there's going to be changes, but I'm going to risk it because I need to get this thing open.
We got to push.
How do you balance that?
Well, it all comes, it's easy to say if there's a change order, right? But what's the value of that change order? What's the meat and potatoes of it? Because if it's a $15 million project and it's a $10,000 thing, we got to go. Yeah. If it's a $15 million project and it's a $1.5 million thing, we might have to pump the brakes and really look at this.
Yeah.
And then is it one of those things that you're going to have to do regardless? Or is it something that we can stop, we can spend time, we can find an alternate way of doing things to avoid that?
Yeah.
And at that point, it's time and money. You have to evaluate that change, what that scope is. Do you need it? Do you not need it? And then make a decision. Are we going to keep moving forward or do we need to hit the brakes?
I think a lot of what we come back to is so if we're going through and we get a permit set, right? That's what we receive and they're saying, all right, start detailing. Start going. Go, 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 go. I got approval from the GC. The owner says, this is good. Go, permit. And we're looking at it going, oh my gosh, man, why can't we? Because we know change orders are going to happen. Like we know revisions are going to happen. So for us, I think when I'm looking at it, especially, I'm like, if we had just waited just a little bit longer, we could have mitigated some of those change orders and kept that from happening. And it would have been a nice, smooth process, right?
Yeah,
so
we didn't save time either.
Huh?
And we didn't save time either.
Yeah.
That's I think a lot of times what we see is something got pushed because we got to go. Guys, I got to get shop drawings going.
Yeah.
Guys, I got to get shop drawings
Just
going because we got to, I mean, permit's going to happen. I'm going to need anchor bolt drawings. We got to get shop drawings going because I know shop drawings are 8 weeks. So we're looking at a node on the schedule or a duration on the schedule. I got 8 weeks in shop drawings. I got to get them going or I'm going to be hosed. That missing information could make 8 weeks turn into 12 like nothing.
Yeah.
And I would hope that changes, at that point are not structural changes, are not red iron changes. We're talking about some minor detailing or, some permit comment that impacts something on the site, from a planning standpoint. I fully agree and would not want to be sending out a set of drawings if it's like, well, we might be changing the building footprint. We might be changing elevations. We might be changing something substantial. At that point, why send it out when you know there's going to be a change? That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
I have it on another project where we're fighting through stormwater approvals and things like that. And the contractor was like, well, I'm going to send this out and price it. And I just said, stop. I said, we don't have approvals. It's probably going to change. Let's not waste everybody's time on pricing this yet. This is good to go. If you want to get pricing on that because it changed, then let's do it. But why waste people's resources to price something is going to change?
It's a complex world.
It is a very complex world. And my puny little detailer brain is like, well, why would we not wait to go until we had 100%? Like, why would we not wait to go then? But when you're discussing this and you're saying like, yes, but think about these elements, it starts to make more sense. Like, okay, no, I understand there's going to be changes, but I gotta move this thing forward.
Right.
But sitting in a little silo in my own little cube, clicking away at stuff, I'm not thinking about that long term, like opening the project, like opening the business.
Right.
To start generating revenue. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking, oh man, I really wish we could have done this because it had kept me from clicking.
Well, and also about what information is getting communicated to you down the line. I communicate to my GC.
Yeah.
He talks to his subcontractors. They talk to their vendors. They talk to their detailers, right? So who knows what is getting communicated down the line? I could have told the contractor, hey, listen, we're going on this, but we're going to have this, so we're not going to be ready for foundations for 5 months. But maybe for whatever reason, he just wants to get everything. He wants to get it. He wants to have it sitting there. So in 5 months, boom, he's ready to hit the ground running, which I understand his perspective. But at the same time, he's telling you to hurry up when really if you had 30 more days to do something, you could have hit another project that really was on fire, really needed a priority. Right. Yeah. And then you would have had time to do this one, maybe a little cleaner.
It's the telephone game coming into play, I feel like.
Communication.
I want to draw back to kind of the original thing, right? Can we get a better design for a little more money, a little more time? And so I want to ask that fairly direct. Like, is there such a thing as a design I pay less for and get less for, and a design I pay more for and get more for? Like, does that exist? Is that, I know I'm going to buy, like this guy is a reputable designer and I'm going to pay him more, but I know I'm getting better out of him. This guy might be 10K less, but he's not reputable. And, my experience with him has not been as good. I'm going to pay 10K more. Does that exist out there? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and oftentimes you get what you pay for.
So you get what you pay for. And then there's also if I have that reputable firm and that designer and they are working on my stuff and they do have my preferred project managerial team, my preferred designers, those people that I know they're going to do that thing. And I give them more time, but they use that time. Would you expect a better outcome too? So this is a leading question.
No,
Absolutely not.
Never saw it coming.
I'm trying to vindicate my name. That would be true too. You would hope so. You got a good designer you're working with, and you give him more time and the expectation of better detail. You say, I want you to spend some more time. We're detailing out this bay better than we have in the past. You would expect them to do so.
Of course you would expect them to do so, yeah.
And even if they said, well, man, I don't really have that in the budget. And you're like, what would it take? $1,000 more bucks? I'll make you whole on it. They would say, okay, yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. Time equals money. I can get you more for that.
Right.
So in a perfect world that exists, the reputable designer and the having good quality controls, I think, is the linchpin to this whole conversation. And that is the thing that makes that difficult is that's a read. A lot of what you're talking about here is just instinct and read, because there's no guarantee. I mean, you might have a reputable designer you've worked with well in the past, but you get a different PM.
Right.
And they're new, they're green. Right. And that happened because it just so happens that they're really good at what they do. And they had 3 good customers and all 3 came at the same time for this
right.
one.
Yeah.
So there are things that we can't control, can't know. And they really are an instinct and a read, trying to do the best with what we've got to make the best decision we have with the things that we have in our hand. And that's where just more time and more money falls on its face.
Yep.
But we don't live in a perfect world. And I can't always just go to that guy and say, hey, I'll give you another week to detail out that bay perfectly. And here's $1,000. Cool, deal?
Right.
It doesn't always work that way. So,
and I think it's a fair statement across the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you have experience with, general contractors and, he costs a little bit more, but man, he's really delivered time and time again. Mm. And then all of a sudden he puts a different super on this job or a different PM that, the same logo's on the truck, but the guy that's driving it is different and things don't go well. Everybody asks me all the time, oh, who's your favorite GC? Don't have one. I've got a favorite supers. I've got favorite PMs that work good. Yeah. Chances are they're working for all kinds of different companies. Yeah. And it's the same with the architects and project architects. I have some that I love working with and are great, and we communicate, and it's like, you hit that stride with them. Where stuff is happening. You got problems, but you're communicating, you're figuring it out, you're working through it. And then you have other guys where it's like you run into walls every time and there's just not that collaboration.
Yeah.
So it's across the board. It's across the industry of, we need to communicate. We need to try and be efficient. We need to be direct with what we want in order to have a chance at having a successful project.
Yeah.
That seemed like a megaphone moment right there.
I don't know. It probably does too. It really is it comes back to the people that you're around. Like we talk so much about the softwares, the automations, or the products, or the different things. But I can say I've experienced that same thing. Like upstream and downstream, the people I work around, and it can be individuals.
Right.
That PM that's above me can make my life a dream, because their instinct and the reads are really good.
Right.
And they don't tell me about that thing I didn't need to know about quite yet.
Right.
They make my life easier. The other guy, I just feel like is just a spaz. And I'm going,
we all know
gosh,
we all know
I know
technical
about
term.
every problem, and I feel like, oh my gosh, the whole world's going to burn down.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's because of this panic.
Yeah.
It's an individual by individual thing. Now, you're very aware of that, and you work hard to try to get a good team around you. That's one thing we've talked a good bit about. Like, you're aware of the fact that if I surround myself with a good team, this is going to make my life easier. Your internal team's very good. You've spoken to them.
Oh, yeah.
But you look for that outside of your walls too.
I don't know how to be successful without a good team.
Yeah.
It's not one individual that's going to make a project successful. And, I enjoyed your discussion with your dad the other day on relationships, because that's really what it is.
Sure.
Is forming that relationship with people. You want your go-to people that are going to come through for you. And you don't want to have to always call on them to be the guy that, pulls you out of a jam. But at the same time, if you pick up the phone and call Bob or whatever, man, Bob's going to come through.
Yeah.
And this is one of those situations where I need Bob and I need him to come through for me.
Yep.
Because otherwise I've got problems.
Yeah. That guy finds a way.
Yeah.
He just always seems to do it. He finds a way.
Yeah. And it's the relationship thing where it's like, I try and feed Bob as much work as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, Bob, you helped me out. Now it's my turn. I want to help you out.
Yeah.
And it's nice to try and do that in the design world as well, of forming those relationships with guys, doing good and saying, hey, I've got work and I want to keep you busy. In my world, it's more, can you guys handle the amount of work I have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And working with that core group of people, when you know all the players involved, you know who to talk to, when to talk to that person, it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
And communicating in the field too. It goes down to working with a superintendent. I love making I try and get on the job site once a month, and I love making those site visits and really communicating with that superintendent so that I can say, you're getting ready to do this. Make sure you get this information. You got to double check this. I was on a site the other day, and thankfully the project manager brought it up and said, hey, look at this. Is this infrastructure right? I'm like, nope, actually it's not. You got to have 2-3-inch conduits coming underneath here for that. Thankfully, he brought it up. Thankfully, we looked at it before a slab was poured and we got time to get it right. But feeding that information at the right times to try and make everybody's job easier is a whole lot different than waiting until after the fact and then saying, well, you didn't do that right. And you didn't do that right. And now you got to fix this.
How many jobs do you have going right now?
A lot.
I was wondering, you say I try to visit once a month. It's like once a month, but like how many jobs do you have once a month for?
Well, geographically, we're spread out pretty good.
Yeah.
And under construction, I honestly don't know the answer to how many are under construction, but how many I have sitting on my desk that I still need to do those schematic designs for, how many my team is working on, how many I'm project managing. I mean, it's up there. It's north of 40.
Yeah, it spreads you out pretty good.
Yeah. And then you start having, 15 or 20 under construction at one time, and you still have the office work that has to get done.
That's right.
And one thing that consumes my time more than anything is looking at change orders.
Yeah.
It's not just there's a change order, let me sign it and move on. No, we dive into the weeds because number one, do I actually need to do this?
Sure.
Number two, is the pricing appropriate?
Yeah.
Where's my sub backup? We ask for a lot of information. I'll admit, we're not the easiest client, but again, we try and communicate on the front end so everybody's efficient. We tell the contractors when we go to bid, this is the information we're going to require with a change order. We contract, this is the information you have to provide me with a change order, so that when it happens, they send it to me. I have what I need. I can ask questions and I can get it back to them because they don't want to spend time on it either.
Yeah.
We all want to be efficient. I don't know any general contractors that's like, yay, I get to work on change orders today.
Right. Well, and you want to be fair. You want to be fair with the change order. I want to pay what's due, but I don't want you to gouge me.
I tell everybody all the time, I don't want anything for free.
Yeah.
Don't take advantage of me.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's be fair. And sometimes I see a number and I don't think it's fair at all, but I also don't understand the scope very well.
Yeah.
And it's not being conveyed to me in the change order. And that's when I have to get on the phone and say, either A, this is way out of bounds, or B, I don't understand this. So help me understand what we actually need to do so I know if this makes sense or not.
Yeah.
How many times do you get change orders that are just a bunch of text, just a bunch, like a big paragraph of an explanation of what is needed, and there are no pictures and things like that, and like they don't help you at all?
It goes,
does that happen a lot?
All the time.
Yeah.
It goes back to, what project manager do I like?
Yeah.
Because does he make my life easy, or does he make my life miserable with, by the way, here's $350,000 in change orders for, revision 4.
Pay it.
Right. I need it signed tomorrow or there's delays. Okay, well, number one, you're not getting it tomorrow. So we can just stop right there. Number two, where's all the backup that I need for this and help me understand this? And you start going into it and you're like, okay, I realize that changed on the plan. I'm not doing it. Just cross it off. We don't need it.
So to you as an owner, what makes a good project manager?
Communication and organization. Just be honest with me. I know you're going to tell me things I don't want to hear, but don't wait until after the fact to tell me. You know, and if there was a drawing revision, don't wait 8 months to send me a change order for something. Let's do it. Let's get it done. And we also are very clear and upfront. If you do work that you believe is a change order and you do it before a change order is approved, that's on you. Now, again, I don't want anything for free. And I'll tell everybody that right away. I don't want it for free. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I want the change or that I agree with the scope, or maybe there's a better way that we can do it. So let's get on the same page and then agree or disagree. And sometimes we're like, listen, you know, I'm doing earthwork. I've got a dirt issue. I don't have time to wait. We got to move. And I say, I totally understand. Number one, our material tester is on site. He can pick up the phone and call me and tell me what's going on. Number two, there's unit costs in our contract for different things. So, hey, if you have it, call me, let me know what's going on. I'll give you a verbal to say, yes, I understand. I know you need to keep moving. I'm good with it. Roll. Or no, let's stop and really evaluate what's going on. You know, I want to keep everybody moving. I'm not interested in being a roadblock. That doesn't help any project. But I do ask for pick up the phone, let's have a conversation, especially if it's something urgent. You know, we talk about emails, this is hot, this is on fire, all that kind of stuff. Let's face it, how many emails aren't? You know, we're all trying to move very fast. What email isn't? But if you literally need an answer right now, then just do me the courtesy of picking up the phone.
Sure.
And I do it all the time with guys, and I'm guilty of shooting an email and saying, hey, I need this. I'm that guy too. And I try and work on that to be better. But I also try and pick up the phone when I need something. Let's have a conversation. Let's get it figured out. Let's move on.
That's I just wanted some advice there, like some wisdom, because I mean, I think a lot of people do want to know, like, how can I be a better PM? Like, how can I be a better project manager for the owners, for the people that are around me? And knowing just the willingness, I think, and the honesty.
Right.
Of where things are at. That's got to be huge.
Well, and on the paperwork side, be organized, right? If it's a change order, I'm asking for sub backup. If it doesn't make sense to you and you're the guy in the weeds on the job, and I've got, X amount of projects going that I'm not there and I'm not in the weeds like you are, try and communicate to me so I can look at it and understand in a matter of minutes versus stopping what I'm doing, pulling up plans, comparing revisions. And I get it. We're all busy. But if you need an answer fast, then help me by being organized and give me the information I need so I can give you an answer fast.
Paint the picture. Give me a yes, no, I can say.
Right.
Yeah, the yes, no. That's huge. And that, dude, that takes time. That takes, I don't know, not so much time as it does feel. Right? Like from a PM perspective of like being able to say like, okay, how can I say this in a very condensed way so it is a yes or a no for you?
Right.
So you can get to the end of the road. What I need you to have understanding of what is going on.
Right.
And so often PMs don't do that. They just
It's that Mark Twain thing.
The forward.
That I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. I love that. Yeah, it takes more diligence. It takes more diligence to be concise and convey your point in a way that makes sense to everybody around you.
Well, it's taking your personal time to review, 2 pages of information to be able to condense it into 3 bullet points, right? And you've got to read that information. You've got to understand that information enough to be able to abbreviate that information and communicate concisely. And that takes time.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's easier to just say, cover page, forward, there you go. Let me know what you want to do. Yeah. And then that person is doing what you needed to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Guys, I'll throw out a hack there because I struggle with this, right? Condensing things down, that can be very difficult for me. ChatGPT, I'm telling you.
I knew seriously, you get there.
I chuck it in there and say, make it easy for a 4th grader.
I can just tell you, I
don't know
if you can understand fully how angsty that can get. The ChatGPT thing, I didn't know what a hot button that was, and it got mentioned on site the other day. Are
you serious?
Brother just went off on it. Like,
Really?
I don't like that junk. And I went, I didn't think about that perspective. And he gave me all of it. So I'm just saying, you try not to step on the hot buttons.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, it's about like mentioning Denver Airport to my director of photography. He blows up immediately. It's hilarious. You're like, no crap, I said the thing. All right. So any other things you want to cover here?
It's megaphone moment. I think this is a megaphone moment.
I think this is the time for the megaphone. I feel like you kind of answered some of it, but we're going to see. We're going to see, man.
You know.
All right. So if we gave you a megaphone in around 60 seconds, you drove here. So, I mean, yeah, we'll give you a little bit more than that. What would you want to say?
I had to check out the nice new set.
Heck yeah, man.
I mean, it's
came
fantastic.
together, right? It's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. We're enjoying it.
Yeah.
I like the new toys personally. Anyway,
Okay.
to the point. If we gave you around 60 seconds, what would you want to say to the construction industry?
Communication. I mean, I think it all comes down to communication. We're all trying to do the job. We're all trying to do, more with less resources every single day. And if we can be concise and to the point and communicate clearly, I think it makes everybody's job a whole lot easier. And I need to work on that every single day. But I think communication is just huge.
Love it. Dude, yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Heck yeah. All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Nick,
Sweet.
Dude, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a blast. I love it.
All right, guys. Well, go build something awesome.